So is Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb relevant in today's day and age? The chief spokesperson of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh said not relevant when this question was posed to him. Many in the right-wing fold though believe that these are important debates from history which need to be revisited and wrongs that need to be righted. Then there are those who say, look forward, there are many real challenges which our country, our society, our people face here and now. That's where our energies should be directed. To give us both sides of this perspective and to help you form an opinion, I'm joined on the NewsTrack tonight by Desh Ratan Nigam. He's an advocate in the Supreme Court, is actively associated with the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. I have with us also on this broadcast S. Irfan Habib. He's a historian of science and modern political history. Welcome, Habib Saab. I have Professor Anand Ranganathan, author and consulting editor at Swarajya. I have well-known advocate in the Supreme Court, Sanjay Hegde. We have Varis Pathan from the AIMIM and Sriraj Nair from the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, members of which were involved in the clashes in Nagpur, which have been dominating the headlines over the last 72 hours. I want to go across first and foremost to Desh Ratan Nigam to try and understand what the RSS actually thinks of this issue as best as you can explain to our viewers. Because when the question was asked right ahead of the Akhil Bharatiya Pratinidhi Sabha in Bengaluru about whether the debate over Aurangzeb was relevant, the answer was not relevant. Can you just try and explain what the RSS is actually trying to say beyond just the words not relevant?
Well, Rahul, in fact, it was just a one-line statement given by Sunil Ambedkarji, the All India Prachar Pramukh of the RSS. And RSS, if you see the context in which it was said and also the previous history of the RSS on such kind of a subject, it is very clear that we consider Mughals as invaders and we also consider them to be a part of history. Aurangzeb is a part of history, but we certainly do not consider him to be a part of our heritage. This is a very fine distinction that we maintain. And it is an admitted fact that Aurangzeb was a tyrant, monster, developed a kind of a parasitic system where his own family enriched himself at the cost of the common people who were made miserable. And 7.3 million people also died of the induced famine by Aurangzeb. And therefore, to eulogize him, to consider him as a hero of this nation is certainly not done. And also the people who were trying to worship his grave and offered namaz, please understand that in Islam, grave cannot be a permanent or pakka thing and you cannot worship on the grave. This is non-Islamic. And some kind of people are probably trying to mislead people, considering him to be a hero. In fact, if you look at...
No, so let me pause you to ask a straight question. There's a big debate raging over whether the grave, the maqbara of Aurangzeb should be shifted out, should be removed from where it is. Where does the RSS, in your view, come out on that, sir?
See, we have not applied our mind on it, but I'll give you an example. In Jannat ul Baqi, which is in Medina, prior to 1925, Prophet Muhammad and his relatives had the Pakka Qabr there. However, in 1925, the Saudi Arabian government demolished all those graves of Prophet Muhammad and his relatives, saying it is anti-Islam. That's the reference point. If you want to have a debate on it, one can have a debate on it, but RSS has not applied its mind on it.
Okay, Sriraj Nair from the Vishwa Hindu Parishad. Now you've got the RSS itself saying that this debate, frankly, is quite irrelevant. I mean, they're saying he's part of our history, definitely not part of our heritage. How does the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, which is a co-part of the RSS, really look at the RSS at its apex annual body, the Akhil Bharatiya Pratinidhi Sabha, sending a message to the people that this debate, frankly, isn't relevant?
Well, it was, as the earlier panelist said, it was just a one-liner, and the fact remains that Aurangzeb is a part of, definitely is a part of history, but not a part of the heritage, as he rightly said. But the fact also remains that he was an invader. He demolished hundreds and hundreds of thousands of temples. He demolished Mathura and Kashi. He converted lakhs of Hindus to Islam by force. And his grave, being in Maharashtra, is a big blot. We don't want that grave or whatever it is In Maharashtra.
No, but where will
Maharashtra
it go?
is
So once again, that's where he died.
Bhumi and
Shiraj Nair, that's where he died. Usually where people die is where their graves are laid. That's where they're laid to rest.
Exactly.
That's where their graves are. That's a fact of history. That's where he died.
Whatever it is, but there are people who are going and paying respect to his grave. He cannot be made a hero. And in the history, in the world history, wherever you see, whenever the rule of invaders were put to an end and when indigenous rule came in existence, all the signs of invaders were vanished, were supposed to be vanished, they were eradicated. Why? Because Congress and the so-called secular party treated Muslims as their damas, as their son-in-laws. That is the only reason, this appeasement politics. That is the only reason this grave is in existence. Otherwise, after 1947, when Bharat got independence, all the signs of invaders and brutal, barbaric so-called rulers should have been eradicated, but that didn't happen. So we want now, this is the right time. After 500 years, the Ram temple has come in existence. After nearly 70 years, now we kicked out Article 370. Now this is the right time. So all these signs of invaders should be out of our country. We have to live in self-respect.
Anand Ranganathan, what do you make of the fact that the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh has now come out and said that this debate is quite irrelevant? I remember your comments from the last time when we were debating a similar topic and you said, no, it cannot be relevant because this is a part of our history. This is what our people have suffered and therefore we need to push back. But the RSS seems to be sending a very strong message to society saying, no, this is not relevant.
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to my fellow panelists. Not for the first time may I disagree with the RSS if that is their view, because it leads to something that must be talked about that's more at a different philosophical level. Let me explain. Rahul, why should anything be relevant, especially the past? For a scientist, why is history relevant, you might say? Look, history is relevant. Historical characters are relevant for they give us a space, establish us, our culture, our civilization. They mark us on this evolutionary timeline. They allow us to learn from our mistakes, to be inspired by our heroes, our discoveries, our victories. Relevance, especially historical relevance, becomes important when truth is deliberately hidden, when justice is deliberately denied, when historical crime is deliberately not corrected. Otherwise, tell me, where was the need for the Ram temple to be built? Where was the need for so many other characters to be remembered? Rahul, Aurangzeb was Baghdadi 350 years before ISIS. He imposed tax only on non-Muslims, beheaded Guru Tegh Bahadur, entombed Shahzadas alive, decapitated Sambhaji Maharaj, demolished Kashi Vishwanath, murdered 4.6 million Hindus. This is well documented, principally through Masir-e Alamgiri. So we know that Aurangzeb was a monster. Now, when millions still celebrate him and millions get aggrieved by it, some say, why rake up historical injustices? Why can't we forget what Aurangzeb did 300 years ago? Well, Rahul, as I say, nations weaken not because of their past, but rather by how they are taught it. And unfortunately, for 70 years, we've been taught to forget historical injustices. From Somnath to Kashi Vishwanath, Babarpur to Bakhtiyarpur, Allahabad to Aurangabad, Martan to Mathura. These injustices have deliberately been made visible as though to lionize the debasement, celebrate the humiliation. And the irony is that the same people who counsel us to forget raking up Aurangzeb and his genocides, who have taught us to forget historical injustices, drilled this self-loathing in us. These same people want others to fight historical injustices around the world. They revel in burning Manusmriti. They want reparations and reservations for the historical injustices committed by the upper caste. They run 1619 slavery awareness campaigns. They demand apologies from nations for historical injustices towards the indigenous people like the Aboriginals. They condemn barbarians of the West hitherto worshipped like the Confederacy generals, Rhodes, Churchill, Pizarro, Murray, Colston, Leopold. They celebrate their roads and buildings being renamed, their statues being brought down. But here in India, this same set eulogizes barbarians like Tipu, Aurangzeb, Babar, Khilji. Why? Because it is a heady mix of hatred for Hinduism and love for jihadism. Hatred for India and love for its breakup. Tell me, is there a Hitler road in Tel Aviv? Why rake up, some might say, Hitler and his genocides? Are they relevant? Why support punishment for Holocaust deniers? Why throw all those who celebrate Nazism in jail? Rahul, just 1 minute. past is relevant only because it defines our civilization. But to understand how, we first have to define it. So what is civilization? How do you define it? Is it an idea to be thrust upon the subject so they carry it forward? Is it the placement of forks on the left and spoons on the right of resplendent crockery? Is it sartorial splendor? Is it words uttered or written? Is it science? Rahul, is it ease of living? Is it wealth? Is it money? Many of the worst tyrants who've killed millions, wiped off entire races, even continents, have been poets, artists, proponents of science. But would you call their endowments as promoting or harboring a civilization? To me, Rahul, just 30 seconds. The mark of a civilization is this unquenchable thirst of man to demand justice for his ancestors, to correct a historical wrong. For that exemplifies a continuity, an idea, a memory that can never be erased, that is worth fighting for and preserving. It makes justice greater than the sum of its parts, and that is why civilizations are not fleeting, Rahul, like empires. And that is why history is a medicine, why catharsis is a cure. It is confounding to me as a scientist because I am but a bunch of cells, here today, gone tomorrow. But till the time I am alive, this concept of striving to correct a historical injustice is vital because it defines who I am, what civilization I'm part of. That erasing my genes cannot erase my civilization. The concept of justice is like memory. It keeps getting passed on until realized.
Okay, you made a very impassioned argument. I want to put that to Sanjay Hegde because there are many who would watch this broadcast who would agree with the idea that all that the Britishers looted from our country, a lot of it, to the extent that is possible, should be brought back because this is our civilization. What happened to us was wrong. And in the same way, when the likes of Anand Ranganathan argue that here is a barbaric invader who desecrated temples, pushed non-Muslims to pay extra taxes, that this is simply unacceptable. There is no reason he should be venerated in the same way as no one venerates Hitler.
Well, I don't think anybody venerates or worships Aurangzeb. And if anybody worshipped Aurangzeb, Aurangzeb as a good Muslim would probably have him executed, saying that nobody other than Allah could be worshipped. But be that as it may. I am afraid that I do not share Mr. Ranganathan's view of the past. My view of history is not that it is one team versus the other, whether Manchester United won in 1971 or Arsenal won. And that my team should have won, etc., etc., etc. I do not live in the past. The point is that if Aurangzeb's grave is removed, the rupee does not increase 1 paisa in value. People do not get jobs. It is not as if hunger vanishes. It is not as if jobs are created. What is also likely is, and we've seen in just a foretaste of it, that there might be social unrest of a character which will have an economic impact. So therefore, when we built a new republic in 1947, we basically said, छोड़ो कल की बात पुरानी, नए जोश से लिखेंगे, मिलकर नई कहानी. And I stand with that. The temples of modern India were built when we built our new dams. We did not at that stage and it was an 80% Orthodox Hindu majority constituent assembly, which made significant constitutional choices for a new republic, and with choices we are pursuing over the past 75 years. We've decided that we are a country that will live together, irrespective of whom you worship, irrespective of whom you adulate. We have the constitutional preambular principle of fraternity, which keeps this country together. Anything that retards that progress is, to my mind, anti-national. And anything which leads to protests from either side is simply not to be countenanced, much less given fuel to.
Okay.
And that's what's happening today. Today, there is a whole industry which seeks to fuel these ancient animosities and conflicts. As a people, we are confident Indians looking to the future. We are not stuck in the past. And just to end, it's like that old Hindi song, सिकंदर ने पोरस से की थी लड़ाई, मैं क्या करूं? I am not going to go and litigate saying that I should, my forefathers who could have been porous lost to Alexander, and therefore I will hate all Greeks. I live in the present, I look to the future. The past is interesting, but it cannot dominate or create my life.
Okay, so you're making the point that no one's venerating Aurangzeb, but Irfan Habib, we did see images, and they're coming up on your screen, of people say Sultan Aurangzeb Zindabad. So there was that kind of sloganeering. You know, you're a historian. In your understanding, are there a large percentage of people, or a very small percentage of people in India at this moment who think of Aurangzeb as a hero? Because A, it's a reality of history, there's no doubt about it. B, do we really need people to go out and start saying Sultan Aurangzeb Zindabad?
First of all, I immensely disagree with what Ranganathan said before.
Okay.
The whole idea of history, not only Indian history, but the history globally. You know, I don't believe in that sort of history. In any case, he has a right to believe in what he wants. Point is, Aurangzeb is venerated by maybe a minuscule Muslims, whom I call stupid. No, I don't think Aurangzeb represented Islam. Aurangzeb was one of the rulers with all his weaknesses, brutalities, etc. And these brutalities are immense. He's a 17th century ruler. Look at 17th century. Look at 17th century France. What was Louis XIV doing? Driving out Protestants, you know, from a Catholic France. Peter the Great doing similar things in Russia. There are so many other examples. So Aurangzeb represented 17th century, and so I have no apology for Aurangzeb at all. He was brutal to his family. He was brutal to his fathers, brutal to his brothers, and brutal to fellow Muslims who were Shia, brutal to Hindus. So he represented a different worldview with which I don't agree at all. And those who venerate him are stupid for me. You know, they have no reason to venerate him. He represents hardly, not even 1.1% Islam at all. So he's a ruler who should be left aside and dubbed in history. No, nothing at all. Now, second, the example Nigam Saab gave of the graves being Prophet's grave and the Prophet's family's grave and all that, that example is not really a very good example to give. I'm not defending Aurangzeb's grave. You throw it out today, you know, doesn't matter. But quoting that example as un-Islamic is un-Islamic because it was done by Wahhabis. Wahhabi Islam is not really Islam. Wahhabi Islam is an ideology. And this is what Saudis have been following all these years. And the petrodollars have taken that Saudi Wahhabi ideology, Islam, to all parts of the world. You know, so that way, that was a very different sort of Islam. It's not Hanafi Islam, which is in majority in India. Wahhabi Islam is a little minority which exists in India. So these Wahhabis did this to the graves of the Prophet, which were objected to by the Ottomans and the Darwishi Islam, the Sufi Islam, but they were not really stopped by anybody because they had power. They had power, they had money, they had petrodollars, and all that is being used even now.
Okay.
So that example, I think, is
Waris Pathan.
Second, just let me finish. Let me conclude.
Okay.
Second, last thing I want to say is, we have to stop living in history. Nobody can say that Aurangzeb did not commit brutalities, atrocities, etc. All that happened in history. Oh, so many atrocities happened during 200 years of colonization. We don't talk about it. We immediately go back to the Mughals. We also need to talk about the exploitation, economic exploitation, social exploitation, conversion, all sorts of issues which happened in 200 years. East India Company to the British rule. So we just don't even talk about it. So point is, we need to engage with historical facts. We don't have to live in history. We have to learn from it. We have to learn and unlearn. That is the only use of history.
Waris Pathan, you know, the AIMIM has actually come out in support, pushing back very strongly against what's happening in Nagpur at this moment. But do you agree with those people coming out supporting Aurangzeb, chanting slogans in his favor? Because if there is an acceptance that here is essentially a barbaric, evil ruler who did what was right for him at that time but caused a lot of depravity and caused a lot of hardship to the locals, then there is an acceptance, okay, everybody feels the same way, like a lot of people would feel the same way about the Jewish Holocaust. It almost seems as if, in this case, what Aurangzeb did, what his life stood for, the barbarism he perpetrated is being celebrated, and that is why people are so rankled and so irked.
Well, Rahul, violence of any kind is condemnable. We don't support violence. Nobody has the right to take law into their own hands, and whosoever is involved in the violence, we are sure that the police machinery will definitely look into it and they will be arrested. And what we have seen just since yesterday was that 7 to 8 people from the Vishwa Hindu Parishad and the Bajrang Dal were arrested, produced before the magistrate, and immediately they were granted bail. While on the other side, 51 Muslims have been arrested, but they are still languishing in jail. But we hope the police will do an impartial inquiry. But here, coming back to the moot question, Rahul, which you posted, was that how is it relevant today? What is the relevancy of Aurangzeb? So I would, in my opinion, say that it is totally irrelevant to dig up a 400-year-old story. The Indian Muslims, in my opinion, present day Indian Muslim does not want to go back to that era. They are interested in development. The Indian Muslims of a present day era wants employment. They want education.
But Mr. Pathan, you didn't answer my question. Mr. Pathan,
that is what they are interested in.
Sir, you didn't answer my question. My question was, images came to light where some people were chanting slogans in support of Aurangzeb. If everybody is on the same page in terms of Aurangzeb being evil, then we don't need to go about digging the wrongs of history. But if there are some people who are celebrating his life, venerating him as some kind of a hero, then that will get a lot more people highly agitated.
Well, if somebody is using such kind of provocative slogans which are hurting the sentiments of other side, then there are police and law machinery is there to take course. But here what we have seen, what will you call provocative statements, Rahul, when the Chief Minister of Maharashtra on the floor of the assembly stands up and says that the Chhawa movie is responsible for the hatred against Aurangzeb. And this Deputy Chief Minister comes forward and says that whosoever wants to learn history must go and watch Chhawa film. Is this not provocative? Is it not incitement? What will you call provocative when their own people from the BJP, their ministers come before the nation time and again and they give provocative statements? Masjid ke andar घुस के मुसलमानों को मारेंगे, औरंगजेब की खबर को खोद के ले जाएंगे. Please, I will come with you. Let's dig up together and let's take it away. If that ensures development for my country, I am ready for that route. Let you, me, everybody, let Anand also come with us. We will go there with axe in our hand and we'll dug up. But provided, let the development of our country take place. Let people get education. Let the unemployed get employment. And when is the 15 lakh come in my account? So to divert the mind of the nation from these basic issues, the BJP has been very well given a point by the Samajwadi Party MLA Abu Azmi. Since last 17 days in the country, from the first day of the budget session we started, this thing are going on in the every debate, Aurangzeb. People have totally gone away from the basic issues. The BJP, it is for their benefit. They wanted to polarize the situation for their own peculiar gains and benefit. They are getting. They were totally cornered in Maharashtra. People are asking their question on the law and order situation in the state. The Pune rape case, what happened there.
Okay.
Then the Munde, there was a murder case that's going on. All these things have now gone to shambles and now everybody is talking only about one thing.
Let's spend some...
What have the Indian Muslims got to do with Aurangzeb? Take him. We want education. We want development. We want employment, Rahul. We don't want this. But the BJP now, still they are going ahead with that. Still they want to divert the mind of the nation. Now that is gone, something other will come. But why don't they stick to the particular thing? Why don't they talk about development? Why do they want to rack up the issue? What is the
You make an important point. Let me put that question to Anand Ranganathan. Varis Pathan's argument is, how can the modern day young Muslim be held accountable for what one individual Aurangzeb did 400 years ago? How is that fair and how is that right? Anand Ranganathan.
No, the modern Muslim is not accountable in the same way that a modern Brahmin should not then suffer reservations and quotas, because how is he responsible for what his ancestors might have done to the lower classes? Do you see where this argument is going? Now, I want to make a couple of points out here. It's embarrassing for a scientist to say this, but, you know, for some of the panelists out here who seem to have snorted the line between history and propaganda, let me inform them that hundreds of thousands of things and policies are happening in parallel. Just because we are talking about Aurangzeb does not mean that India is not creating jobs, that the inflation is not being tackled. Last year, 47 million jobs were created. Inflation is at a 5-year low of 3.5 to 4%. We have landed on the moon. We have circled Mars. It's not that we are just talking about Aurangzeb. We are just talking about one of the things other than the other things in science and just because you are not well versed with science and technology doesn't mean that things are not happening on that front. Number two, the point that Waris Pathan Saab made factually is wrong and others also have made. Muslims indeed are and were celebrating Aurangzeb. You showed the Narebazi. There are thousands of others. In fact, Aurangabad has seen routine.
No, but he's making the point that that's a very minuscule number of Muslims. It's not as if the vast majority of Muslims support Aurangzeb or think of him as a hero.
Please let me finish. For Waris Pathan to be so ignorant as to the fact that Ovaisis routinely visit the grave of Aurangzeb and pay their respects. There are photographs of it. Now, people are clearly eulogizing Aurangzeb. Now, I ask you a simple question. Are the people in the panel against Holocaust deniers being treated as a crime and a punishment? Is there a grave for Hitler? Why don't you realize that you are double standards? Because the more you venerate Aurangzeb, the more then you turn a blind eye to hundreds of thousands of Muslims celebrating Yaqub Mehmet, attending his funeral.
Then visiting Jinnah's grave is acceptable. Visiting Babar's
Saab has started interrupting me because he is worried.
The grave of the Mughal emperor has become...
Okay, Mr. Pathan, let Anand Ranganathan complete and then you make your point.
Yeah, he never lets me complete because he knows what I'm going to say next. All those people who celebrate or are quiet when Aurangzeb is celebrated, they are the ones who pour out on the streets in their tens of thousands to venerate, eulogize, celebrate Nasrallah, other terrorists, Burhan Wani, Yaqub Memon. Did you know there is a grave for Yaqub Memon? Now you can say, well, why rake up the Mumbai blast? They happened 30 years ago. It's not a question of raking up. It's a question of doing what is right. Nobody wants to discuss Aurangzeb. But yes, certainly, if you eulogize him, the person who committed a genocide of millions of Hindus, then certainly it should be raked up.
Okay, let Waris Pathan respond. What's the need for Asaduddin Owaisi and his brother Akbaruddin Owaisi to go to the mazar of Aurangzeb, asks Anand Ranganathan. Here's a man who very clearly targeted hundreds of Hindus, if not thousands, if not lakhs. And if that's the extent of the attacks that he's doing, why go and worship him like a hero?
Well, Rahul, it is an ASI protected monument. If you go there, what is an offence committed by the remove the ASI thing? You won't go there. But Advani ji going to Jinnah's graveyard in Pakistan, that is nobody's sentiments got hurt. Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of the country, goes to visit Bahadur Shah Zafar's. Nobody's get disturbed. So this is the way they want to take the country back to that era. Why? What is the harm? Remove the ASI tag, you won't go there. But here you don't want to do that. Anand, my friend, try to understand the Indian Muslims are no way concerned. If you want to remove the grave, take it. But what about the development? You got just brought into the issue since last 17 days without any ramifications. Offenses. What are you doing? What do you want to do in the country? You are just trying to create hatred. More hatred is growing in the country because of such kind of things which are raking up by the BJP. Because you want to polarize the situation. You have totally failed in the field of development. You want to divert the mind of the nation, and which you have successfully done it. That's why you are raking up an issue which is 400-year-old. If Aurangzeb were barbar, he was a barbar, okay, take it into consideration. He committed so much blood bath on everybody. So will you revenge that from the present day Indian Muslims? Will you take that revenge from the present day Indian Muslims? You want to do that? Why then you rake up the issue of that Aurangzeb now? You want to create this mayhem now today with the Indian Muslims? No. So why? This is sensible people like Anand Ranganathan there in the country. They must come forward. Tell the nation that please forget Aurangzeb. Let him go to hell. Today we have to look forward if you want to compete with China. Otherwise, if we go back to this thing, we will take not more than 5,000 years. More than 5,000 years will require us to compete with China now, Mr. Anand Ranganathan. If our country goes with this pace, if you go along with this, if you go on only Babar since 400 years back, Aurangzeb, forget about Aurangzeb. He is gone. Matti mein mil gaya, kaam khatam ho gaya.
Let Desh Ratan Nigam respond to what you're saying. Waris Pathan. Mr. Nigam, the argument is we have real challenges here and now. artificial intelligence, the advances China is making on quantum computing, advances in they've just launched a new software after DeepSeek, which again shows the kind of, it's called Manus, the kind of new software capabilities they're demonstrating using artificial intelligence. The argument is that's where energy and public debate should be concentrated. Why isn't India doing a Manus, or why isn't India doing its own DeepSeek, rather than getting caught in these debates from history? How do you respond to that? Desh Ratan Nigam.
Well, Rahul, in fact, Anand Ranganathan had very aptly put it. Development is going on at a very fast pace, whether it is in the field of software, hardware, artificial intelligence, and we have all heard Prime Minister speaking on the subject, and it is being done on a mission mode. And I can also, add huge amount of data, whether in terms of the railways, highways, or digital highways, or every other thing. But the point out here is, when you say a modern Muslim should not be held accountable, we do not hold modern Muslims or today's Muslims responsible. But whoever tries to eulogize Aurangzeb, tries to worship him, tries to make him a hero, they are the ones who have to be held accountable. There is no question about it. And therefore, to mix the two subjects of development and the Aurangzeb's barbarism or monstrosity, these are two different things. It is a matter of pride for our country that India's civilization values have to be taken forward, which were destroyed by the foreign invaders. And I'll reiterate again, to teach monstrosity, barbarism, lunacy, tyranny of Aurangzeb is relevant for history. But however, to include him in our heritage, Aurangzeb is irrelevant. I sum it up like that.
Okay, now Irfan Habib, the building of a grand Ram temple in Ayodhya provided the majority of people in this country a sense of catharsis, a civilizational catharsis of sorts. Now, if that same Ram temple argument were to be extended, that this issue of Aurangzeb has been simmering for a while. It's exploded post the movie Chhawa, but it's been simmering even before this, which is where the name of Aurangabad was changed to Sambhaji Nagar. So the debate has been around that if something symbolically were done, maybe it will provide a catharsis. That's what Anand Ranganathan was also saying, that it provides like an outlet that some wrong of history in some fashion has been corrected. Do you buy that? Do you think that's logical?
No, not at all. Not at all, because this sort of catharsis, you will not stop at Aurangzeb. You'll find something else. So I don't know, but how far and for how many years will you go on visiting history and finding Aurangzebs in history? Oh, there's no end to it, and you have to go back to Buddhas later on when you are done with the Muslims. So I don't know what is the logic behind it, and these emotive appeals to people of all sorts of like persecutions, etc. Who will deny this? They all recorded in history. Some of it is not recorded so well. Do it better, but don't come to the street and to break each other's head. No, that is not the way to deal with history. I don't think history teaches you to go and kill each other in the name of Aurangzeb.
No, but do you think post Chhawa what's happened is, Mr. Habib, that
film was made with that purpose. It has earned more than 500 crores. No, it has hit the right sentiment, and it was supposed to be to do that. If you show, I have not seen the film. If you show the Sambhaji's sufferings by Aurangzeb for 40 minutes in graphic details, obviously, if you show that on a screen, no, people are going.
But what's happened as a result, Mr. Habib, there are also historical accounts which some of whom depict Sambhaji Maharaj as having a problem with alcohol. Some of those accounts have recounted his liaisons with women and raised questions about his competence as a ruler. But because of the way the movies come out, it seems as if one perspective of Sambhaji Maharaj has now come to the fore and is being taken as the gospel.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, if you show that and show that in graphic details, in video, in front of the people in the big screen, obviously you will have some reactions, and these reactions you can see in Nagpur and the whole of Maharashtra. Not that Sambhaji was not persecuted by Aurangzeb. Of course, it is part of history. But if you show that in such detail, gory detail, obviously it is going to lead to some reaction.
Okay,
And
Anand Ranganathan, there are accounts from the court of Sambhaji Maharaj which present him in a very different light from what the movie shows. Are we now in a might is right, majority wins kind of binary where because this movie is made in this moment and at this current time, therefore they show what they think is right and therefore present the best of their man and the worst of his opponent?
First of all, I'm astonished by this argument. By that logic, the films like Schindler's List or The Pianist that showed the gory details of the reality of the Holocaust should not have been made. By that logic, don't write any book that tells you in graphic details about the atrocities that were created in the past. I mean, what kind of... I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. Just, just because you are rattled by the illogic that you propose, just have the patience to listen. Number two, the fact of the matter is when this gentleman says, supposedly a historian of science, that one should not rake up the past, what's the point? Just ask him point blank, should Ram Temple issue have been raked up? Should you have Ram Temple at all? Or is that anti-national as one other panelist also said? Where will all this end? This hatred for Hindus has to end. This hatred that was exemplified and put to stone by Dr. Ambedkar as the reality of one community, this has to end. Stop hating Hindus, please. We are your brothers. Stop it, Professor Habib. Don't hate Hindus.
This is...
I must come in here.
Professor
Habib is a good friend of mine,
okay,
and I happen to be a Hindu. So stop this nonsense.
This is absolutely stupid. You know what Mr. Ranganathan just said?
Stop this nonsense.
Stop now. Listen to me what I'm saying.
Okay.
No, stop. Don't.
Let Professor Habib speak. Let Irfan Saab speak. Let Mr. Habib speak, please.
So, here. You see what Mr. Ranganathan said, as he always says, that he has no facts. He distorts facts. He distorts science. He has no clue of what science is. No, he claims to be a scientist. It is utter rubbish what he said just now. Globally, you know,
science.
It makes no sense at all. No, what is this? And he's teaching me how to go about history. I didn't teach you how to do science.
You don't understand.
I do what I do. You know, I know how to do it. I don't need to learn lessons.
You know, this is becoming unnecessarily acrimonious. I don't want it to be personal because that's not the kind of debate we like to run. We want to raise the quality of the debate, debate facts, debate history, try and win through the power of argument, not by trying to lower the quality of the argument by getting personal. That's not right, and I don't appreciate this at all. But Sanjay Hegde, I want to build on that Ram Temple argument to ask, because there was a collective sense of catharsis. There are temples being built. Just look at the sheer number of people who go to the temple now. And therefore, to extend that argument to Sambhaji Nagar, that if the grave is moved out as is being asked for, would that then provide some sort of closure in the moment to what was a clear historical wrong?
Okay, firstly, let me put it straight to you that the Ram Temple judgment of the Supreme Court very clearly said that the principle of non-retrogression was valid constitutionally and a good constitutional value, that we would not rake up ancient wrongs. They were making an exception only for the Ram Temple. That was with regard to the Places of Worship Act. Parliament has taken a call saying that only the Ram Temple issue, that they kept out and everything else was frozen. As a country, we have taken that call. Now, today, somebody may have a problem with Aurangzeb. Tomorrow, another person may have a problem with Tipu Sultan. A third person may have a problem with Saint Francis Xavier in Goa. Where are we to stop? Our grandfathers may have fought. Our great-grandfathers may have fought worse. The question is, what kind of India are we building for our children and our grandchildren? Are we building a rancorous India driven by ancient enmity and identifying with stories of the past? You know, Yuval Noah Harari made one very great statement. He said the difference between man and animals is mankind's ability to tell stories. Now, what is the story of India that we are building? Is it that we are an ancient civilization, a modern country, where there have been waves of bad moments, but we've overcome all of that?
Okay.
And as Nehru put it, a palimpsest of experiences, which we look at. We've come through all that. कुछ बात है हमारी हस्ती में कि मिट्टी नहीं. That is the India that we are building.
Okay.
It is not to go into ancient sores, keep scratching wounds and keep inflaming them.
Well, you've heard from different experts, different perspectives argued very passionately. I leave it to you, our viewers, to decide who they thought had the more compelling argument. I want to thank my guests for joining me on the NewsTrack. It's a murder that has stunned India. A man working in the United Kingdom killed and chopped by his wife and her lover. The cops are probing if both were into black magic. This even as images of the accused's room point to an obsession with drugs and satanic symbols.
A murder that sent shockwaves across the nation. A wife Muskan and her lover Sahil murder the husband Saurabh, chop his body into pieces and hide it inside a drum and cover it with cement in Uttar Pradesh's Meerut. All because the husband Saurabh stopped Muskan from consuming drugs with her illicit lover. After butchering Saurabh, Muskan and Sahil went on a vacation. Distraught, Muskan's parents say she does not deserve to live and must be hanged.
कुछ अजीब से बिहेव कर रही है लड़की.
पाउडर भी ले रखा है कोई ड्रग्स वगैरह, ये उपलब्ध कराता था ये लड़का. मेरी लड़की कह रही है कि उसने ये कहा कि अब हमें नशे करने को ये मंजूरी नहीं देगा और हम नशे नहीं कर पाएंगे. अब क्या करना है तो उन्हें कहा इसे हटाना पड़ेगा.
Muskan's parents believe her paramour Sahil got her addicted to drugs when their affair began. Now images have emerged of the accused Sahil's room that's filled with bizarre graffiti and some of it resembling satanic symbols as well. Sahil's room was also filled with alcohol bottles.
किस तरीके की सोच थी, क्या अंधविश्वासी सोच थी, ये पुलिस की जांच में ये एंगल भी है. क्योंकि ये आप यहाँ पर जो तमाम तस्वीरें हैं उसको देख करके किसी की मानसिक दशा की स्थिति समझी जा सकती है. इस तरीके के भी कई निशान यहाँ पर बना रखे थे. कई सारी चीजें पुलिस ने यहाँ से बरामद की है. इस टेबल को देख करके भी अंदाजा लगाया जा सकता है. अगर इस टेबल को देखेंगे तो देख करके अंदाजा लगाया जा सकता है कि किस कदर नशे का आदी था साहिल.
Muskan and Sahil confessed to stabbing Saurabh to death. On the night of March 4th, Muskan laced Saurabh's food with sedatives after luring him on pretext of celebrating her birthday. The duo stabbed Saurabh in the chest with a butcher's knife and then slit his throat. They cut off his hands, hid it in a large plastic drum, cement and sand. Despite a 2-hour effort, police were unable to open the drum due to the hardened cement and had it sent to the mortuary, where the drum was eventually cut open to recover the body.
पुलिस द्वारा जो शव है उसको रिकवर कर लिया गया है. उस शव को पोस्टमार्टम के लिए मोर्चरी भिजवाया गया है और इसमें जो दोनों ही ये हैं साहिल और मुस्कान, इन दोनों को हिरासत में ले लिया गया, गिरफ्तार कर लिया गया है. परिजनों की तहरीर के आधार पर सुसंगत धाराओं में मुकदमा पंजीकृत कर लिया गया है. अब इन दोनों को ही माननीय न्यायालय के सामने पेश कर आवश्यक विधिक कार्रवाई की जा रही है.
The victim and Muskan's husband Saurabh had told his family he worked in the merchant navy, but he was actually employed at a bakery in London. The incident occurred in Meerut after he recently returned from London. With Himanshu Mishra, Bureau Report, India Today.
This is where we wrap up the NewsTrack tonight. For your time and your trust, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you at 8 p.m. tomorrow evening. Till then, from all of us here, goodbye, good night.